Today, I'm doing something a little different. Instead of a typical Harvest Growth podcast interview, I'm excited to share a full episode from the Garlic Marketing Show hosted by Ian Garlic. I recently joined Ian on his show to dive into my new book, The Perfect Launch System, where we discussed not only some of the key strategies from the book, but also explored new topics like how AI is changing the future of video marketing, areas we didn't have space to cover in the book itself. I wanted to share this conversation directly with you, our Harvest Growth podcast audience, because it expands on the principles we talk about here all the time, helping you launch, grow, and scale your business more effectively. Right after our standard Harvest Growth podcast intro, you'll hear the full recording from my interview on the Garlic Marketing Show. I hope you enjoy it. And as always, if you find value in what you hear today, please share this episode with others who could benefit from it. And if you would like a free electronic copy of the Perfect Launch System book, go to perfectlaunch.com. Now let's jump in.
Are you looking for new ways to make your sales grow? You've tried other podcasts, but they don't seem to know. Harvest the growth potential of your product or service as we share stories and strategies that'll make your competitors nervous. Now, here's the host of the Harvest Growth Podcast, Jon LaClare.
All right. Garlic Marketing Show. I'm Garlic here. We're back and we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects with an amazing friend of mine, video marketing, product launches, and AI with Jon LaClare. Jon, thank you so much. And we're going to talk about his new book, The Perfect Launch System. Oh, that's the right name of it. Sorry, Jon.
You got it.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I was like, all of a sudden I second guessed it. I'm like, is that the name of it? It's at least I can pronounce your name. So Jon, awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on. Let's talk about, you've got this book I want to talk about. We'll talk about AI video. We've had you on. We've talked about Harvest Growth before, the amazing background, but let's do a real quick, 30-second overview about what you all do and who you all work with so everyone knows.
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest way to describe it is to talk about my background and history real quick. So I was a brand manager at Kraft Foods doing new products, went from there to OxyClean back in the Billy Mays days, running new product launches for Kaboom, for OxyClean new products, et cetera. And then we kept that going when that company was sold off and founded Harvest Growth. So since then, now it's 18 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long and it makes me feel old for sure. But since then, we've been focused on similar things. Of course, the world has changed, right? It's different. But what we do today is focused on launching new campaigns and new products. So we can talk about the structure. It's really what the book is all about, is how to do that process. We've launched hundreds of products over the past 18 years with great success. Like not every launch is a success, but our success rate is significantly higher than other marketing agencies, especially for product launches, simply because that's what we do. That's what we focus on. There's a unique way of doing it, and it is different from just marketing an existing product.
In launching new products, I love that you said, not everything works, right? Because a lot of people are afraid to admit that not everything works. And I'm sure you're going to have a ton of podcasts about what works. But I'd love to know, because I've made tons of mistakes that led us to Video Case Story, and also not just mistakes, but like things that we thought was going to work and it just didn't, or like, hey, we should do this way instead. Can you give me an example of one of the things that didn't work that you changed that is now in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the early days, you kind of think you know things, right? I had done several really successful launches at OxyClean, at Kraft, and a couple. We had the first big client we had was a massive success. It was called Sonic Scrubber. Went on to sell 10 million units. So you kind of figure, I know what I'm doing here. And we did. We knew the process, right? But it was still being perfected, right? No pun intended from the title of our book. But what we've learned and really honed since then, a couple of things. One is the value of testing. So market research, we kind of did in the early days, but it is a core focus of what we do before we ever spend a dime on any sort of media, or frankly, even start writing scripts. And it doesn't have to be expensive to do this type of market research, but getting the messaging, the offer, and your audience figured out up front during this testing process really has made all the difference. So we had a couple of early failures along the way, and really learn this process. And since then, what I see, and I'll give you some numbers, the traditional success rate for launching new products, whether it's Kraft Foods, my original background, or smaller companies, put them all together, it's typically 5% of brand new products succeed. And that's why, like Kraft Foods, I was there in the Nabisco brand and the Planters brand, and I was there when they launched the first Oreo flavor. It was chocolate cream Oreos. Long story short, since then, if you go down the Oreo aisle, and it's a cookie aisle, right? But it's like half Oreo, and there's like 30, 40, 50 SKUs, depending on what store you're in, all different flavors. It's because it's less risky, right? Rather than launching something new, let's just make a modification. That's what big companies do. But how do you launch something unique? That's the difference. And figuring out, again, your messaging that's going to resonate, who your audience is, and getting that offer really tweaked and optimized before you get to launch has made all the difference. So it's taken, for us, the success rate of brand new products. Now, we do a lot with, bigger companies where we help them grow with new campaigns or et cetera. But for brand new products, we've taken that success rate from 5% to 50%. So again, still half of them don't work, right? It's risky, but it's a 10 times improvement. And that's the biggest difference, is doing this testing and learning approach. We call it the preparation phase, or prepare before you launch, and doing it the right way makes a huge difference. Doesn't have to take a lot of time, doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but if you do it right, it makes all the difference.
Of all the testing things that you've tried, what was the one thing that you're like, this is the one thing everyone has to do?
Yeah, so bare minimum is to do an online survey. So get out and reach out to 100 to 200 people. It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be crazy expensive. But 100 people that you don't know, right? They can't be related to you. They can't be friends because they're not going to be honest. But getting out to an audience, you can buy market research lists, and it doesn't have to be, again, crazy expensive. But that's the bare minimum, is that interaction with people you don't know. An add-on to that I recommend, we don't always do this because it takes time, frankly, and it's different, but to fine-tune your messaging, if you can get into any sort of live selling environment, like a home show, your local flea market, and just spend a day or a week, but at least a day out of a booth selling your product, it's a huge learning opportunity. We did it even when we were a $250 million business back in the day with OxyClean. We still did that for launching new products, right? And we do it on occasion. We've got a product coming up in May that we're filming on a Wednesday, and we're going to a home show. We're going to film, but we're also going to do a test market there to really fine-tune that pitch to make it even better for the next round of filming that comes up.
I mean, and that's because we talked about it, when we had Rick Cesari on, that's one of the things he does too. And I mean, that's video case story, right? It's listening to your customers and and seeing how they actually react, not just guessing what they're going to think, right?
Right. Yeah. Like, so in a survey, you do your best to create a concept, sometimes video, sometimes pictures as well, depending on the status of the, if it's a prototype, we can't do video yet or whatever, but you do as much as you can, but it's one iteration and then you test it. But in a home show environment, you can change your pitch throughout the course of the day. So by the end of the day, you're probably going to talk about your product differently than you did in the very beginning. It's because you've perfected it by hearing questions, hearing concerns, and addressing those along the way.
I love that. I mean, it we'll talk about AI later, but it shows you that AI, and you can't do that with AI. I mean, you can try, but really you can't. You need a human to touch things and feel them and see them. And I mean, we can take pictures of it now, but that really isn't going to do it, is it?
Right.
So, tell us a little bit about the book and where we can get it, first of all, because it seemed, I was going through it and it's like your entire system. Like, like when I did I love video, I love books like that. So it's like, here's how you do everything. If you want the best to help you, you call Harvest Growth. But tell us a little bit about what goes on in it and the steps that are in it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, of course, the book, but also the way that we put our full system in there, really. And, we're all about education since day one. I'm a big believer in learning as much as you can. And that's the goal of the book, is to teach what we've learned over really 25 years of doing this, right? 18 years at Harvest Growth, plus a career and education before that of really launching products. So the best way or easiest way to get it is, of course, you can go to Amazon, and it's available on Kindle, hardback, paperback, etc. And then also you can go to perfectlaunch.com. You got a link to buy it on Amazon, but also there's a link there if you'd like a free either electronic copy, or there's a way to get a free signed hard copy of the book as well. So perfectlaunch.com is the easiest way to get the book.
And when you look at the steps, right? Tell us about the steps that are in there to the perfect launch.
Yeah, it comes down to 3 basic steps, if I could summarize at the highest level, and it's prepare, produce, and profit. So prepare, we've kind of talked about a little bit, right? It's that testing protocol, whether it's a survey or home show or sometimes focus groups, might be a small test market. And so it's that preparation phase where you're learning 3 things. It's your audience, your offer, and your messaging. So you're learning who the target audience is. A lot of us think we've got this great idea of a product and everyone's going to buy it. And that may be true, but there's going to be the target market that will buy it first, right? When they'll take the risk on a new product. So at least what are the demographics? Is that male, female? What ages? What incomes? Maybe what geographies or other aspects that might drive a difference with yours. But at a minimum, the demographics of who's going to most likely buy your product, that's who you market to first, right? The other ones are on the fray, and again, you'll eventually get them. It doesn't mean we only hit the target market, but they're the core focus in the beginning. The offer, it gives you the chance to really fine tune, okay, how do we price it? Maybe what do we include with it? If we have a price that works with our margins, in research we learn, do people view that as a value? In other words, do they already think like, that's amazing, you can buy that for $30? I thought it would be $100 or whatever. If it's lower than expectations, fantastic. If it's higher than their expectations, okay, we got to build up their expectations. We got to create more credibility, create more reason, a bigger problem to solve in their minds, etc. But find out that perfect offer and the way to talk about it that's going to work best. And then the messaging, the last piece, right? So is how do you talk about it? Usually for us, for you too, Ian, as we know, video works best, right? Yep. People remember 95% of what they see in a video, they retain versus 10% when it's written or read. So that's a huge difference. Video is extremely powerful. And the messaging in our market research, it doesn't mean we have to show a video, depending on budgets, et cetera, before that. But at least, okay, what are the features and benefits of your product or service, whatever your business is, that are going to resonate? That's going to drive your scripting for your video. It's going to drive the visuals, et cetera. But understanding all that. So that's, long story short, I'll be shorter with the other two, but that's the preparation phase. It's really the most important. If you nail down preparation, then the produce section and the profit section are that much easier. Produce is really about, okay, we've learned all this. Now let's go into production. It means our videos, right, typically. Any kind of content that goes with that, your website, of course, right? Maybe Amazon listing, et cetera. So it's about producing to match what you learned in the preparation phase. And then finally, we get into the profit phase. So now we've test marketed, we've produced a little set of videos, a website, we've done a test market where it's actually live on, let's say, Facebook and Instagram, as an example, as a first campaign. The profit phase is, okay, now we've figured it out. It's paying for itself, and we could talk more about how that's done, but the advertising is now free, in essence. It's paying for itself. Okay, how do we scale it up? So using the techniques we describe in detail in the book, but it's about how to really scale up your efforts once you get your campaign working or profitable.
Yeah, and I love that because everyone wants to just go straight to scale. They're like, well, is this ad scalable? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, the preparation's so much more important. And in getting ready, and everyone wants to skip over that piece. It's everything. And I love that system. It's simple. Obviously, you go into detail more in the book. And, you skimmed over offers. But it's so important, right, to create a great offer. How would you describe what an offer is, and why do most people get that wrong?
Yeah, a big part is urgency. So we give some examples in the book, and we'll use some tried and true infomercial techniques. So even though, people listening might think, I'm not doing infomercial anymore. That's, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. The interesting thing is they actually still work. They're just different today, right? TV can absolutely work as a medium, but all that aside, it doesn't work for every type of product. So if you've got a digital launch, most people watching or listening, that's what your ad is, a product that's going to work on digital, or at least digital first. Those principles still apply that we learned from the kind of quote unquote old TV days. And I think that's one reason we've found unique success in this space is we have that grounding of principles from 20 years ago, and we marry those with technologies and techniques that you can do today you couldn't do 20 years ago, right? It's the combination. But one of them is urgency, right? So a lot of these things of course we do in digital, but if you think back to the old Billy Mays days, right? But wait, there's more, right? Building up that offer. The reason that phrase is so well known, and the interesting thing is I just interviewed about a month ago Billy Mays the third, Billy Mays' son, and we talked a lot about his dad and his story, and there's a lot more of it in the book that actually from that interview, some learnings from Billy's son directly. But he's like, my dad actually never said that line, and I had to go back and watch. I'm like, oh, wow. It is interesting because so many other people did, right? But wait, there's more was a statement that was said. I can't remember what's that effect where we like remember things incorrectly from the past or whatever. Yeah. But he had other lines that he did. And that's not all, and things like that. So he had other lines that he would say, but wait, there's more. But it's the same structure, right? It's about getting you excited. Where you see the end of an old TV infomercial, a 2-minute spot like OxyClean back in the day, this big bundle, like how do you afford to sell all that to me for that? It's a crazy value. And so you get that urgency, but I've got to call now. Back in the day, send a check or money order, right? Crazy to even think about that, right? Mail it off a check to an address.
You'd have to wait for 4 to 6 weeks.
Right, exactly. And have no tracking information. You just kind of wait and hope, did I get scammed from this? Who knows? So it's a different world today for sure. But the urgency is still one key element of that offer. And there's a lot of ways to get to it. One I talked about is kind of that bundling, right? Where the value seems really high, or limited time where it feels like, even if it's just the crossed out price we see so often, like, save $10, it feels urgent. So getting that urgency where they've got to not just look, but purchase now. In the direct-to-consumer world, that's so important. Otherwise, they think, oh, this is a really cool idea. I want to buy it next time, right? I'll think about it later. Yeah. But, okay, how do we get them over that hurdle and make sure they buy more quickly?
The urgency, it's a great one, because a lot of people don't think about it. They're like, well, I have a product. I can't make it urgent. But you have to. And, when it comes to marketing and marketing systems, there's so many people out there that are like, you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this. And you and I both know, like, it's there's so much you can do. It's as much what you shouldn't do. When you look at, product launches, and maybe someone that's come with an idea for a product launch, or things that people say you should do this, what are some of the things that people should avoid in launching a new product, as far as like marketing, et cetera?
Yeah, great question. I'll tell you a couple of the biggest problems that come to us, right? Or issues potentially where people have failed in the past and looking to redo it. One common one is they've kind of blown their budget before they get to marketing, right? You got to realize, so first of all, realize that there is a necessary budget for marketing. You can't, even if you have the greatest product in the world, you've got to generate awareness for it, right? You've got to make people educated about what it is, how it's solving problems, have them come across it. And without marketing dollars, they're never going to see it. You can't just put it on a website or just put it on Amazon, et cetera. And as surprising as it sounds, so many people launching new products have come and said, I've spent all my money on patents and product development, and man, it is perfect. And I just, I can only have this tiny budget for marketing. So making sure you've got the funds available, and alongside with that, give it time. There is a process. So yes, we've had amazing success with the product launches we've done, but every single one is different. And there's still a window where you've got to learn and optimize the campaign, make tweaks, et cetera. And for us, we typically recommend 90 days even, which is not crazy long, but you'd be surprised how many, like after the first week, are like, it didn't quite make it there. It's all the budget I have, or whatever it might be. But look at this as a testing window. Again, for us, the process we do, typically 90 days, and you should start to see some results early on. But once you get that profitability, you're off to the races, right? But give it some time, some ability to be able to get through that testing. But as long as you follow the processes, have a little bit of funds, it doesn't have to be crazy expensive, and some time and patience for it, then it's a process that works.
Yeah, you got to spend money. And 90 days, I guess I know that. I'm like, 90 days is nothing.
Right.
I mean, because even if you create urgency, there's people that think about it and have to consider it and see that commercial a few times, see that video a few times before they buy it, and then their friends talk about it. So 90 days is a fast success factor. So speaking of things that you shouldn't be doing or you should be doing, let's talk a little bit about AI and video, because I just got a call today. It's like, well, should we be making all our ads and all our videos with AI? And I'm like, I don't think that's the best idea. Where right now, and you talk about this a little in the book, but obviously it's going to change. But right now, when we, a few weeks after the book launch in 2025, where do you see AI and video?
Yeah, great question. And AI is an amazing tool. Absolutely, right? You've got to use it the right way. And the right way today, as you kind of alluded to, is going to be different in a month or certainly in a year from now, right? It will change over time. But as of today, where we've found great success in using AI is on the strategy side, copywriting side. If you are limited in your ability to write scripts, but you kind of know the general gist of it, having AI to help you in content generation in terms of, especially for videos, okay, what should I show? What should I put into the script, et cetera? Now, it's important to know the principles behind it. AI isn't perfect. So you've got to know what you're looking for and adjust it once you get it. You can't just put something in and hope to get something perfect out, right? But it can certainly take some time off your shoulders and add to the creativity. We've used it. Now, we've done thousands of videos over the course, as have you, right? Over the course of many years. And, we've got a lot of experience, but the creativity side is AI kind of exponentially grows even our experience set, right? So we'll get some ideas. Like, I haven't thought of that demonstration. That's a good idea. You'll get some bad ideas, right? And just put those to the side. But creativity can be helped through the AI process. Now, when it comes to the actual video production, we can talk about, what you do versus us. I'm interested to hear about what you found as successful. For us, like little snippets to replace maybe a quick stock footage area, if you need something very specific, it can be quick and dirty, like background almost visuals. It can be helpful for that, right? We had an ad we did a while ago, had to have a woman sitting on the side of a road with a car broken down and smoking behind her. Like, they didn't have a budget to film that. That's a massive budget, right, to do it right. Stock footage isn't going to have it. So AI, after a lot of iterations, came up with something pretty good. Again, it wasn't the main video, but as a background, it can be great content, extra content to kind of continue your story. But where we're not using it, I'll tell you, is in authenticity, right? I go back to a couple of interviews that I have done on my own podcast, and I summarize several of those, a couple of dozen of them, of sort of the best in the book. And a couple that come to mind that talked specifically about authenticity were Billy Mays' son, as he talked about, okay, why was your dad so successful? And that was one of the first things he said, he was authentic. And we found that in working with him. When you know him, you know he's authentic. But America did too, right? When he was, even though he's yelling and selling, right, they used to call it, you knew that he cared. Like his energy came out in an honest, authentic way. It was believable, right? Authenticity was big and showing real demonstrations that made it believable. The other one was Bob Circosta. He's the original pitchman from HSN from 40 plus years ago now. I can't remember the number, but it's tens of thousands of hours of live TV that he's been on selling products on HSN. He's a good friend and a genius when it comes to selling. And he mentioned the same exact word, authenticity. And I keep going back to that. So if we think about AI, the way to stand out in today's world, if you look at your social feed, it's a lot of AI stuff, right? And image, there's fun stuff you can do there, sure, right? Humorous stuff, it's awesome for that, right? And there's a place for it. But now a way to stand out is to show authentic content. So like we're doing today, right? A real interview to real people with real background experience. You can't imitate that in the same way. So the authenticity really is an important factor to have in any of your content that comes out. And again, use to get, okay, what should we talk about today? Yeah, like for me, to be honest, I went through and I used AI to, hey, summarize my book, give me some key points. I want to make sure I hit these because I wrote it, but it's 300 pages to like remember or whatever. And for quick stuff like that to help with content or reviewing stuff, awesome. But to be here today and talking about it and really sharing with our audiences, it's a whole different thing. Yes,
no, it is. And you're, if you miss the creation process, I think you miss, like, it's great to have, in ideas for creation, but then actually in that process, there's so much you can learn and so much you can find out. And I know, like with us too, it's like, yeah, for B-roll, great. We can we can put something in there. It's going to help tell a better story. But when we see someone's face and we hear someone's voice and it is authentic, it just rings true. And what I'm hearing too is actually younger generation is actually, having some backlash against it, where they will instantly turn it off if it's AI. And maybe it will improve where we can't tell the difference, but I just don't see it anytime soon.
I agree. Yeah. And the other thing I will add to that, and it kind of gets back to the Billy Mays story too. Of course, Billy's son mentioned this. If you think Billy Mays, you think demonstration, right? So usually the first thing that comes to mind is the fishbowl demo, the black water, pour OxyClean, and it turns to white instantaneously. All right, everyone remembers that demo from like 20 years ago. It hasn't been done since. Actually had to be pulled from TV. That's a whole other story after a while, just because it was, nobody uses betadine in their real life or whatever. But it was an amazing demonstration, one of many. So, and that's something you cannot really mimic in AI, is showing how your product works in a real environment. Again, that authentic connection to the product, not just to maybe the talent or the host or pitchman or whatever, but to the product itself.
Nice. That's it's so true. And I think that we lean on AI, and you're talking about creativity. What are some of the other ways that you are using AI right now in your marketing that maybe most people aren't thinking about?
Yeah, so a couple of tools that we have found. So let me start in ChatGPT. It's kind of the one that everyone goes to as a first. And it's good. Like everyone's going to argue like, I use X tool that's better for this, that, or whatever. But it's an example. And certainly it changes every day, the horse race, right, to see which platform is going to be best. But it's one that people are familiar with. And getting in there for, again, building or starting creativity. We use it actually for, we put in there, we got a new product we're working on. We've never worked in this category. Give me a marketing strategy. The more information you give it to, like, just don't stop there, but here's what we're trying to hit. Here's what our target market is, we think. Here's the key demonstrations. Here's the price point. Give it as much information as you can, and it'll spit out a good start, right? So it's not going to, you don't want to have that as your ending strategy, of course, right? But it gives you some ideas like, I hadn't thought about doing that style of video or that type of approach, or maybe this marketing channel that might fit that better than something else. So helping you to open your mind. We sort of use it as a brainstorming tool. So a start to the process, and then get humans back in, more involved on both the implementation, but also the judgment, right? Of knowing what's going to work well, what's not. Not everything's perfect, right? But from that, cherry pick the best ideas and go to implementation. And so that opening creativity is what we found a very valuable part of using AI.
It is, and it's like that conversation and bouncing ideas. That's one of my favorite things to do. It's all the time is what that is. What have I not thought of? What am I missing here? It's really poking the holes in your strategy, and making sure also that it's not always set up to be a yes man, because it can be too complimentary. Right. And
I was talking with a good friend the other day, like, I'm curious to see what's going to happen to this next generation. I don't want to say I worry, because I think the previous generation would have said the same thing about us with computers. Like, oh man, you guys will never learn anything. You got computers, right? Yeah. But if you think about AI, those that are learning through this process, their lives are going to be different, right? It's not necessarily going to be worse, but when you start with that process, maybe what you lose is the experience. If you trust it too much, then you're not going to know what's giving you good ideas versus bad ideas. And right now, it's not perfect. Again, I don't know the timeline. At some point, it'll catch up, right, to us. But hopefully that's a little bit off in the future. But in the meantime, it's about understanding, okay, what is it giving you that's good versus not? And if you're early in your career, just make sure you combine it with real content, right? So do the study, do the research, do the actual trials, go through this, as opposed to trusting everything to AI, so you can judge what's good and what's not. And then real quickly, I mentioned another tool that we use. So we actually have a couple tools beyond the ChatGPT realm, if we switch gears really quickly away from video onto media buying. So where they help us to buy media on Amazon, on Meta, Facebook and Instagram, et cetera, by doing better pinpointing of who the audience should be, but also turning off and on the campaign. So on Amazon, for example, if you've got a campaign spending $200 a day and it's doing really well, a lot of times what will happen is it'll hit that 200, if that's what you have budgeted, at, let's say 2 p.m., and then you're done until the next day. So if you could spread that to be the most profitable times of the day, maybe it's the same budget, but it can really drastically increase your return on investment. One quick example is a client, we implemented this tool that was already successful, doing really well, had been on Amazon a couple of years, and the results almost overnight, it took a couple of weeks, doubled. So the return on ad spend, or ROI, doubled simply by doing this approach. Same budget, but we're going at different times of day, a little bit of audience adjustment, but the biggest thing was just the bidding. And that's something you can't do manually, right? That's a tool where AI can come in and really extend your capabilities beyond what you can physically do.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, that's great information. That's a perfect use case, right? Of something it's more strategic and mathematical, not creative. And I think those are the cases that are the best. But also, I've learned not to straight up use ChatGPT for math, because it's not good at that right off the bat.
Good. Yeah, good point.
I was having to add some numbers yesterday. I'm like, those numbers don't add up. It's like, oh, you're right. I'm like, okay. Well, that's fantastic. So once again, you can go to it's perfectlaunch.com, correct, to get the book?
Correct. Yeah, perfectlaunch.com.
And we'll get the book there. You can obviously you can buy it on Amazon and follow Jon on LinkedIn. They have a podcast on YouTube. We'll put a link to all that in the show notes. And Jon, what out of LinkedIn, YouTube, where are you spending most of your time?
For marketing our own business or clients?
Yeah. No, for marketing your own business.
Yeah. So LinkedIn and X actually has been an amazing platform for us. We're a little bit new to it, but it's already showing great returns where people go there to learn, kind of like LinkedIn, right? So because our positioning in the marketplace is about education, about teaching, beyond just the book, we love to help companies launch products, launch new campaigns, grow their businesses, et cetera, and also to teach you how to do it. And LinkedIn's awesome for that. But X is a great platform for getting the word out, and we can be followed on X. Our tag there is video profit, video_PROFIT. So how to make profit from video, basically. A lot of stuff on the book, et cetera. But it's been a great platform. LinkedIn, of course, fantastic place to be to learn and teach.
We'll put a link to all that in the show notes. Jon, thanks so much for being on the Garlic Marketing Show.
Thank you, Ian. It was great to see you again.
Great to see you too, and thank you all for taking Jon and I on our journey. And really, this is amazing information. Make sure to check out his book, and make sure to go follow him there on X and LinkedIn and contact him. This has been Ian Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.